deliver lectures all the way home? He asked presently. Of course not. Why? Because if you are, I'll take a bus. If you are not, I'd like to walk with you and tell you something very interesting. I won't preach anymore, and I'd like to hear the news immensely. Very well, then. Come on, let's. It is a secret, and if I tell you, you must tell me yours. I haven't got any, began Joe, but stopped suddenly, remembering that she had. You know you have, you can't hide it. So up and fast, or I won't tell, cried Laurie. Is your secret a nice one? Oh, isn't it? All about all about people you know and such fun. You ought to hear it, and I've been aching to tell it this long time. Come, you begin. You'll not say anything about it at home, will you? Not a word. And you won't tease me in private. I never tease. Yes, you do. Get everything you want out of people. I don't know how you do it, but you are a born whittler. Wheedler. Thank you. Fire away. Well, I've left 2 stories with a newspaperman, and he's got to give his an answer next week, whispered Joe in her confident's ear. Hurrah for Miss March, the celebrated American authors, cried Laurie, throwing up his hat and catching it again, to the great delight of 2 dogs, 4 cats, 5 hens, and half a dozen Irish children, for they were out of the city now. Hush! You won't come to anything. I dare say, but I couldn't rest till I had tried, and I said nothing about it because I didn't want anyone else to be disappointed. It won't fail. Why, Joe, your stories are works of Shakespeare compared to half the rubbish that is published every day. Won't it be fun to see them in print? And shan't we feel proud of our authors? Joe's eyes sparkled, for it is always pleasant to be believed in, and a friend's praise is always sweeter than a dozen newspaper buffs. Where is your secret? Play fair, Teddy, or I'll never believe you again, she said, trying to extinguish the brilliant hopes that blazed up at a word of encouragement. I may get into a scrape for telling, but I didn't promise not to, so I will, for I never feel easy in my mind till I've told you any plummy bit of news I get. I know where Meg's glove is. Is that all? Said Joe, looking disappointed as Laurie nodded and twinkled with a face full of mysterious intelligence. It is quite enough for the present, as you'll agree when I tell you what it is. Tell then. Laurie bent and whispered 3 words in Joe's ear, which produced a comical change. She stood and stared at him for a minute, looking both surprised and displeased, then walked on, saying sharply, How do you know? Saw it? Where? Pocket? All this time? Yes. Isn't that romantic? No, it is horrid. Don't you like it? Of course I don't. It's ridiculous. It won't be allowed. My patience. What would Meg say? You are not to tell anyone. Mind that. I didn't promise. That was understood, and I trusted you. Well, I won't for the present, anyway, but I'm disgusted and wish you hadn't told me. I thought you'd be pleased at the idea of anybody coming to take Meg anyway. No, thank you. You'll feel better about it. when somebody comes to take you away. I'd like to see anyone try it, cried Joe fiercely. So, should I? And Laurie chuckled at the idea. I don't think secrets agree with me. I feel rumbled up in my mind since you told me that, said Joe, rather ungrateful. Race down this hell with me, and you'll be all right, suggested Laurie. No one was in sight. The smooth road sloped invitingly before her, and finding the temptation irresistible, Joe darted away, soon leaving hat and comb behind her and scattering hairpins as she ran. Laurie reached the goal first and was quite satisfied with the success of his treatment, for his Atlanta came panting up with flying hair, bright eyes, ruddy cheek. Ready as for his Atlanta came panting up, with flying hair, bright eyes, ruddy cheeks, and no signs of dissatisfaction in her face. I wish I was a horse. Then I could run for miles in this splendid air and not lose my breath. It was capital. It was capital, but see what I see what a guy it's made me. Go pick up my things like a cherub as you are, said Joe, dropping down under a maple tree which was carpeting the bank with crimson leaves. Laurie leisurely departed to recover the lost property, and Joe bundled up her braids, hoping no one would pass by till she was tidy again. But someone did pass by, and who should it be but Meg, looking particularly ladylike in her state and festival suit, for she had been making calls. What in the world are you doing here? He asked, regarding her dis dis disheveled disheveled sister. Disheveled, no. Sister with well-bred surprise. Getting leaves, weakly answered Joe, sorting the rosy handful she had just swept up. And hairpins, added Laurie, throwing half a dozen into Joe's lap. They grow on in this road, Meg. So do comes and brown straw hats. You have been running, Joe. How could you? When will you be stopping such rumbling ways? Said Meg reprovingly, as she settled her cuffs and smoothed her hair, with which the wind had taken liberties. Never till I'm stiff and old and have to use a crutch. Don't try to make me grow up before my time, Meg. It is hard enough to have you change all of all of a sudden. Let me be a little girl as long as I can. As she spoke, Joe bent over the leaves to hide the trembling of her lips, for lately she had felt that Margaret was fast getting to be a woman, and Laurie's secret made her dread the separation which must surely come sometime, and now seemed very near. He saw the trouble in her face and drew Meg's attention from it by asking quickly, "Where have you been calling all so fine?" "The gardener's, and Sally has been telling me all about Belly Moffat's wedding. It was very splendid, and they have gone to spend the winter in Paris. Just think how delightful that must be." Do you envy her, Meg? Said Laurie. I'm afraid I do. I'm glad of it, muttered Joe, tying a jerk. Why? Asked Meg, looking surprised. Because if you are much about riches, you will never go and marry a poor man, said Joe, frowning at Laurie, who was mutely warning her to mind what she said. I shall never go and marry anyone, observed Meg, walking on with great dignity, while the others followed, laughing, whispering, skipping stones and behaving like children, as Meg said to herself, though she might have been tempted to join them if she had not had her best dress on. For a week or two, Jo behaved so strangely that her sister was quite bewildered. She rushed to the door when the postman rang, was rude to Mr. Brooke whenever they met, would sit looking at Meg with a woe begone face, occasionally jumping up to shake, and then to tell the girls declared had both lost their wits. On the second Saturday after Jo out of the window, Meg, as she sat sewing at her window, was scandalized by the sight of Laurie chasing Jo all over the garden and finally capturing her in Amy's bower. What went on there Meg could not see, but shrieks of laughter were heard, followed by the murmur of voices and a great flapping of newspapers. What shall we do with that girl? She never will behave like a young lady. There as she is, said Beth, who had never betrayed that she was a little hurt at Jo's having secrets with anyone but her. It is very trying, but we can never make her comey level, added Amy, who sat making some new frills for herself with her curls tied up in a very becoming way to agreeable things, which made her feel unusually elegant and ladylike. In a few minutes Jo bounced in, laid herself on the sofa, and affected to read. Have you anything interesting there? Asked Meg with condescension. Nothing but a story. Won't amount to much, I guess, returned Jo, carefully keeping the name of the paper out of the sight. You'd better read it aloud. That will amuse us and keep you out of mischief, said Amy in her most grown-up tone. What's the name? Asked Beth, wondering why Jo kept her face behind the sheet. The Rival Painters. That sounds well. Read it, said May. With a loud hem and a long breath, Jo began to read very fast. The girls listened with interest, for the tale was romantic and somewhat pathetic, as most of the characters died in the end. I like that about the splendid picture, was Amy's approving remark as Jo paused. I prefer the lovering part. Viola and Angelo are two of our favourite names. Isn't that odd? Said Meg, wiping her eyes, for the lovering part was tragical. Who wrote it? Asked Beth, who had caught a glimpse of Jo's face. The reader suddenly sat up, cast away the paper, displaying a flushed countenance, and with a funny mixture of solemnity and excitement, replied in a loud voice, Your sister. You, cried Meg, dropping her work. It is very good, said Amy critically. I knew it. Oh, my Jo, I am so proud, and Beth began to hug her sister and exult over this splendid success. Dear me, how delighted they all were, to be sure. How Meg wouldn't believe it till she saw the words Miss Josephine March actually printed in the paper. Graciously Amy criticized the artistic parts of the story and offered hints for a sequel, which unfortunately couldn't be carried out, as the hero and heroine were dead. How Beth got excited and skipped and sang with joy. How Hannah came in to exclaim, Saki's alive. Well, I never. In great astonishment at that Joe's doings. How proud Mrs. March was when she knew it. How Joe laughed with tears in her eyes as she declared she might as well be a peacock and done with it, and how the spread eagle might be said to flap his wings triumphantly over the house of March. As the paper passed from hand to hand, tell us about it. When did it come? How much did you get for it? What will father say? Won't Laurie laugh? Cried the family all in one breath as they clustered about Joe, for these foolish, affectionate people made a jubilee of every little household joy. Stop jabbering. This one jabbering. Jabbering girls, and I'll tell you everything, said Joe, wondering if Miss Burney felt any grander over her Evelina than she did over her rival painters. Having told how she disposed of her tales, Joe added, and when I went to get my answer, the man said he liked them both, but didn't pay beginners, only let them print in his paper, and noticed the stories. It was good practice, he said, and when the beginners improved, anyone would pay. So I let him have the 2 stories, and today this was sent to me, and Laurie caught me with it, and insisted on seeing it. So I let him, and he said it was good, and I shall write more, and he is going to get the next paid for, and I am so happy, for in time I may be able to support myself and help the girls. Joe's breath gave out here, and rubbing her head in the paper, she bedward her little story with a few natural tears for to be independent and earn the praise of those she loved were the dearest wishes of her heart, and this seemed to be the first step toward that happy end.